Oh dear, that's pressure. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome and thank you for giving us your time today. I'd say good afternoon, but it's afternoon in Wisconsin, and I know we have people on this call, on this session from time zones that say, not quite afternoon, we're morning, and we're really, really glad you're here. So my name is Morgan MacArthur, and it's my pleasure to be part of a fantastic team from Extension, University of Wisconsin Extension. We're located in Baraboo, Wisconsin. For those of you who don't know where Sauk County might be, we're just north of Madison. At the top of my screen is the very talented Jennifer Erickson, who is my colleague at Extension, and we both have business cards that say we are community development educators. That means we support our community in many, many ways, and part of that is leadership. And below my picture on the screen is Ellen Klima. And Ellen is our stage manager. She is the person that keeps us on track between the guardrails. She works for the University of Wisconsin Platteville, Baraboo Sauk County campus. So the three of us are pleased to extend a welcome that you've come to hear a session about creativity and problem solving that we are calling New Eyes, New Prize. And we hope at the end of this 90 minutes, you would agree with that assessment, that we can see the world a little bit differently. And if we can, the rewards are tremendous. And to us, that's what really this creativity thing is all about. What have I missed there, Miss Jenny?
Got it.
All right, well, let's go to the next slide, if we may, please. Jenny and I and Ellen are part of, well, Jenny and I co-facilitate the Sauk County Institute of Leadership. It's a local leadership program that's been running for 20 years. Nod if I got that number right. Yep, 20 years. And it's designed to help people with professional and personal development, as well as understanding the workings, pull back the curtain and see what happens in the county. And 20 years, it was the first program of its type in the state of Wisconsin, first county leadership program. And I can speak from personal experience. I went through the program, and in many, many, many ways, it was transformative. It was truly New Eyes, New Prize for me. And this year, of course, with the coronavirus, we're all keeping a great distance from each other. Matter of fact, so far apart that, in fact, we haven't had in-person sessions. And this today is the kind of session that would be part of the Sauk County Institute of Leadership. We'll have a little blurb at the end of the program about signing up for. We hope that this fall we're anticipating and moving forward as if it's going to happen in person, and we are craving that connection. So it's our hope that that's the case. So it's a 9-month program and has activated a lot of people, myself included. Next slide, please. Go ahead, Jen.
Applications are already available on our website, and so if you are interested, you can sign up. Applications are due July 1st. However, there is an early bird of June 1st. You save $75 on the registration. So that's available. And like I said, we're taking applications. And if for some reason we're not able to start in September, as we typically do, we might push it back a month or two to accommodate, vaccination rates and all that. But we are planning to be in person for the 9-month program next year.
Right. Let's kick the door open on this thing with a really, really, really hard question. And it's a conflicting question for many people. And the question is, are you an artist? And look, I've had offline conversations with a lot of people about this program and generally speaking. And when you ask this question, not me. And so I think it's a common mistake for us to think that in order to capture that label, artist, we need to be a visual artist, a dancer, a musician, fill in the blank, which are classic and probably short of the mark assessments of whether or not we're an artist. And I'm of the belief that our life is a canvas, And all of us have collections of stories and experiences, observations, interactions, all of this delicious package that makes us human beings. And really our life is our art. And I went to my cabinet, one of my favorite cabinets in the house, and I picked up my crayons, my Crayola Super Tips markers. Super Tips, friends, only 20, but that's all you need. Hey, they draw thin and they draw thick. That's right. And I think today, Super Tips is really what we're all about, is to invite you to see, first of all, that you're an artist and that you have all of this creative potential. And so hopefully you'll come away with Super Tips. Now, here's the asterisk in the little footnote that maybe you'll be ignited by some of this and maybe you'll say nothing new there. But all of us, hopefully, rub up against someone or a new idea, see something in a new way, and see ourselves as creative or as an artist. Next slide, Jenny, please. So the question, friends, and this is your opportunity to kick something in here and talk, but what is creativity? What is creativity? In your experience, your observation, what is creativity? Unmute your microphone and just jump in here. And that's just about right for Zoom. We all a little
Seeing
hesitant.
something from a different perspective.
Seeing something from a different perspective. Thank you, Dr. Hilton. Others. What is creativity?
It is combining what otherwise are disparate elements into a unique combination.
Oh, nice. Thank you, Mr. Schwartz. Thank you very much. Combining disparate or different elements into a new combination to create something new. Thank you. Others? What is creativity?
I don't know if you can hear me.
Yep, you're good.
It's problem solving in ways that might not have become immediately apparent.
Nice. Spoken by an artist. Nancy, thank you very much.
Using your imagination.
Nice. Thank you. Hearing imagination and combination, solving problems in ways that maybe not immediately apparent. That's exciting. Combining disparate elements. Any other ideas, thoughts? Kick it in. Creativity.
Morgan, we had one come in the chat. In my workplace, creativity is making something eye-catching out of the existing product I have and I'm trying to sell.
Nice. Nice. Solving, again, there it is, solving. We're problem-solving machines. So one feature of being a human that distinguishes us is that big old wrinkly bit of our brain and the way it fires and the way we communicate and the problems that we solve. We are problem-solving machines. If it's a new way to tie your shoes, or if you're doing a surgery, or creating a piece of art, whatever it might be, playing your guitar, we're problem-solving machines. So there's a tremendous YouTube video, one of the most popular YouTube videos by a fella named Sir Ken. You help me, Jenny. Sir Ken's last name again?
Robinson.
Sir Ken Robinson. And he's helped us a little bit with some definitions, not necessarily the definitions, but some definitions of creativity. He says that they are original ideas, and that original thing may be just original to us, right? That we own that idea, that have value, and that doesn't necessarily have to mean the metric is money, but those ideas have value. Ooh, that's cool. But there are also a couple of other components to this creativity bit. One is imagination, which is at the core, right? Bringing new ideas to mind, bringing it into the wrinkly bits of our brain and processing it in a way that says, ooh, that's new. And again, it doesn't necessarily have to be new to the world, but those ideas would be new to us. new and novel. And that to me is part of this super tips business, right? It's having a crayon and creating something new, and you go, wow, I kind of like that. And then the next slide, Jen, please, and that is innovation, putting new ideas into practice, putting legs under them, and bringing that into the world, bringing it into the marketplace, however that might be. So those are some ideas about what creativity is. And I would argue that we are all creative as a verb. We are all problem solvers, and that means that we are creative. Now, there's a difference in my mind that says, well, some people are creatives, right? They are carrying that label of being a creative. And to me, that's a category like artist or somebody who's in a category, and that's where we get all tangled up. I think creativity and problem solving are verbs, they are actions. Next slide, please, Jen. So there are some myth understandings about creativity. And number one is only special, talented people are creative. And I think about the likes of Picasso and Mozart and you know, epic superstars, Shakespeare. And as part of getting ready for this, I came across a book written by Twyla Tharp. And Twyla Tharp is a choreographer, a dance choreographer. And the title of the book is The Creative Habit, Learn It and Use It for Life. And what is really interesting in here is her treatment of Mozart, right? So we all have an idea of Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart as you know, the prodigal musician. And she said, Mozart was hardly some naive prodigy who sat down at the keyboard and, with God whispering in his ears, let the music flow from his fingertips. It's a nice image for selling tickets to movies, but whether or not God has kissed your brow, you still have to do the work. Without learning and preparation, you won't know how to harness the power of that kiss. And nobody worked harder than Mozart. By the time he was 28 years old, his hands were deformed because of all the hours he had spent practicing, performing, and gripping a quill pen to compose. So look, nobody worked harder than Mozart from that account. And of course, he didn't have the benefit of the internet and all of the tools and tips and tricks that we've got. Didn't even have antibiotics back then. So that's not true that only special talented people are creative. It takes a lot of work. Creativity is about special things. Well, again, I go to my library and my bookshelves are groaning with books that beg to be looked at and read. And here's another book from the editors, contributors, and readers of Fine Cooking magazine called How to Break an Egg. And look, we're all innovators, right? In the kitchen, if something doesn't work, we're going to figure out a way. And that is 1,453 kitchen tips, food fixes, emergency substitutions, and handy techniques. And all of us are innovators and creative. So it's not necessarily about special things. It's about coming up with new ideas, new ways, shortcuts, hacks, if you will. And you've got it or you don't. That's a myth understanding, right? We have degrees of it, and it's like a muscle. It needs to be developed. And our hope is that today's super tips will activate that muscle for you. New eyes, new prize. Next slide, Jenny, please.
All right. So a number of years ago, George Land developed a test to help folks or to help identify the creativity test designed to select innovative engineers and scientists for NASA. So the idea is that if you're stuck in space, you got to be really creative and innovative and be able to come up with uses for all different kinds of things. So I thought we should give it a try. And so the question of the day is, how many uses can you think of for this paper cup? So there are no wrong answers. It's just an opportunity to flex our creative muscles. So if you would just drop in the chat any idea you can think of that would be a use for this paper cup.
Is it only one paper cup or can there be two paper cups?
I think we can have more than one paper cup.
Telephone.
All right, great. Telephone.
Pen holder.
What's that?
Pen holder.
Pen holder. Other ideas. What else can we come up with for this, guys? Any idea is a good idea. It can be a crazy, silly idea.
Oh, the hits are coming on now.
Ellen, can you see the chat?
Yeah, there's a bunch coming through. So we got
You help me.
toothbrush holder, telephone, paint container, hearing aid, for drawing a circle, plant starter, a beer game. That's my favorite so far. Musical instrument, snacks, a shovel. Theoretical example, emergency urinal for 3-year-old when you're stuck in traffic. Sounds like it's been done before. Popsicle holder, seed starter, light diffuser, elephant nose, flea circus stage, a hat, flip it upside down, cut out a slit in it, and have it be a picture holder.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so you guys are off to a great start with George Lamb's creativity test. He gave the same test, the same NASA creativity test to kids that are 3 to 5 years old. He also gave it to 10-year-olds, 15-year-olds, and adults. And what he found is that 98% of those young kids that were in a Head Start program scored at genius level on this creativity assessment. But unfortunately, as time went on, as we get older, the adults, only 2% of adults scored at genius level with this same kind of assessment test. Now, I can't tell you if you guys scored at genius level because I don't know what that takes, but I think you did pretty good. Anyway, but I think when through our life, we get a real focus on rules and conformity, and it kind of squeezes the creativity out of people. And what George concluded is that this idea of non-creative behavior is learned. And that's something I think we can try to figure out how to unlearn. Oops. So why is this important and why should we even care? Why are we talking about creativity today? Well, this graphic is right out of Daniel Pink's work. He wrote the book, A Whole New Mind, a while back, and he states that our economy is shifting, right? A long time ago, the focus of our economy is really on this agricultural age about settling, growing things, feeding people. And then it moved into this industrial age, more automating, moving things, machine stuff. Most recently, I think we've been in this information age, the knowledge worker, the aggregate, the computers, the mega data, all that sort of stuff. But things are changing and we're moving into a concept age, and the age of the idea, right? Where folks that are creators and pattern recognizers and meaning makers are the ones who are going to be really driving the economy. It's proving out and it's proving out in workforce stats across our country. Creative problem solving is essential in absolutely every discipline. And it's the #1 sought out trait in leaders today. So as a leadership development program, we're focused on creativity because we know it's important for the future of our local economy and beyond. So we need to be practicing this muscle more often. So to that end, I would like to launch a poll, and I want to ask you, to what extent are you living up to your creative potential? Did everybody see the poll? All right, I see people. So you haven't even started yet. You're doing it a little bit. You're getting there, or you're crushing it. How are you doing in terms of living up to your own creative potential? I got a few more folks that need to fill it out. Maybe some of you are on the phone, so you can't do it. But I will close it here. And can you see the results?
5% haven't even started, 50% somewhat, 35% getting there, and 10% are lighting it up. They're crushing it.
All right. Excellent, excellent. So I think we have some room for growth, but some people are on the top end, so they're doing good. We'll be expecting to hear from you throughout the day. So what we found, though, is that in a recent study, although people feel that unlocking creativity is really important, it's crucial to their economic growth or their success, but really only 1 in 4 people feel like they're living up to their creative potential. But I think the good news is that we have opportunities to tap into those creative selves. Morgs?
Oh, golly, the lessons you learn in the backseat of a taxi, right? So that's what happened here for me. there was, when I lived overseas, there was a fellow that I hired regularly to take me to the airport, and his name was Don Huggins. And Don had this beautiful old restored Mercedes 4-door sedan, and he was a neat guy, a neat old guy. And, you know, just powerfully passionate about automobile restoration. This story takes place in New Zealand, where I lived for 10 years. And Don, one day on a trip to the airport, was telling me about restoring a 1947 Dodge car. Right, so Dodge vehicles were made in America. He's in New Zealand at the lower lobe of the globe, and parts are not readily available for those cars. And so he told me about parts that he had to fabricate, right? He had to make those parts. And I shook my head and I said, I could never do that. And quickly he shot a glance through the rear view mirror to me in the back seat of his taxi, and he said, don't ever say that. And I said, what? And he said, don't say you can't do it unless you've tried it, right? And that was a powerful lesson. Obviously, it's been a long time since I got that lesson, and yet I'm reminded of it all the time, that frequently we get in our own way when it comes to creativity and problem solving, because we say, well, I can't do that, right? And the key word is the big 3-letter word there, yet. And this is one of those super tips about creativity and problem solving. It's a tool, and that is about mindset. Some great news for you is there's this fantastic book. This is your chance to pipe in, Dr. Hilton, because you and I both love this book called Mindset by Carol Dweck from Stanford University, changing the way you think to fulfill your potential. And really, creativity is about possibility. And we heard that in the ask about what is creativity. It's really about possibility. And so 2 key words for us to all tuck into the back of our brain bucket is not yet. I haven't done it. I can't do it because I haven't tried it yet. So that's an important point. And we've got a little exercise here, a little invitation to have a conversation. Jenny?
All right, so we're going to try something here, folks. So bear with me. We're going to break into some small groups. We're going to do this a couple of times. So the ideal situation here, and I hope I can do it, is to keep you all in the same group. But what I'd like you to do once you get into your small groups is, first of all, foremost, I want you to just introduce yourselves, right? So part of Sauk County Institute of Leadership is building new relationships across the county and beyond. So we want you to definitely get to know each other a little bit. And then we're going to ask you to tell a story. So the person whose, let's say, first name starts with, we'll go alphabetical, starting with first name in the alphabet. So those Amy's are going to go first. And person 1 is going to start telling the story with once upon a time. And then the second person will kind of continue that story saying, yeah, but the third person, yeah, but fourth person, yeah, but you keep going like that. So Morgan and I are going to quickly demonstrate. So once upon a time, there was a horse that lived on the beach.
Yeah, but that beach was on Hudson's Bay in Canada.
Yeah, but the
sorry,
but
I didn't hand you much there, did I?
I'm not doing this now on the spot. Yeah, but it was really snowy there, and the horse liked snow.
Yeah, but he was lonely because it's cold up there, and none of his equine buddies wanted to come and spend time with him.
Yeah, but he had found a pen pal.
Yeah, but horses they only have hooves and they can't write with pens.
Okay, so you get the idea, right? I hope so. I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm going to put you into breakout groups. I'm just curious. I'm curious about how did your stories change from the yes buts to the yes ands?
So much easier to do yes and.
Yeah, it was more positive, the yes and.
More, okay, the yes ands are more positive and it was a little bit easier to do, right? Any other thoughts about how your stories changed?
I was aware during the first one how it seemed like I was always put in a position of countering what the person before me had said. But I could see right away with the yes and was going to help us build a story.
Yeah, I think of yes and as always being very cumulative, right? So you're growing and growing and growing, and it's a lot easier to do that, I think, than to shut the story down. Were there some differences you noticed between the yes but and the yes and stories?
More laughter on the yes and.
Yeah. Okay. Were the stories crazier one version or the other?
Yeah, I found it much easier to go off on a tangent with the yes ands in a playful way.
I think so too. I think it's easier to add to than to try to direct it in a different way. So as you're thinking about your yes ands and your yes buts in your stories, how do you think this relates to creativity? Thoughts on that?
That big butt's a killer, right?
Yeah. Creativity kind of relies on this yes and mindset, right? Like whether it's for yourself as you're trying to be creative on your own or with other people, using the idea of yes and to sort of build more ideas or go off on tangents, or, you know, it allows you to take things in a lot more directions rather than that yes but that kind of is confrontational and shuts things down.
Well,
Mark always likes to talk about creativity is about possibility, and possibility is easier with and than it is with but.
I think it brings more ideas to the table, like more people feel more included and can participate.
I think so too. It's I think creativity, the future of creativity and being creative is really a collaborative process. So the more you can weave in other people's thoughts, the more I think creative the situation you get sometimes. So I know, Morgs, you had an anecdote for us on the yes ands and the yes buts.
Oh, well, I think, you know, our big butt's showing, right? If your big butt shows, it's going to be a killer. And if you think about, you receive a compliment from somebody and somebody says, you know, Julie, I just really loved the time that we spent at the Yellow House bed and breakfast there on 8th Ave in Baraboo, but the breakfast was cold. Well, what happens to the compliment part when the big but shows up? It's done, right? It just negates the positive flow of the compliment. And that but is a killer. So in many contexts, it's a killer. But this one is an encourager. It offers oxygen, it offers lift, it offers buoyancy, it offers all of those things when it's yes and. Acknowledging and building. And so, you know, we talked about tips, right? Those Crayola tips. And I think that's a good one, is just that simple word is to take this little improvisational theater exercise, which is a classic exercise, and going from but to and. And think of the and as oxygen and the but as carbon monoxide. So go ahead.
Talk a little bit about how this applies to growth mindset.
Okay, sure. So really this sort of summarizes what Carol Dweck talks about in her really good book about mindset. And, you know, the invitation here is to look in the mirror and say, well, do I have a fixed or a growth mindset? And what does that look like, right? And I think in various areas of our lives, we may vacillate. We may bounce from one to the other. I don't think it's either or. It's you know, colors between the two. But a fixed mindset classically says, you know, you've either got it or you don't. I'm stuck. You know, I've been born with this set of skills, and as Popeye says, I am what I am. Arguably not the case. when it comes to challenge, it's something to avoid because we may be exposed, right? We may be exposed for what we don't know. Therefore, I'll be labeled as stupid, or I'll be, I lack skill. And so when it comes to challenge, we just roll over and say, well, I don't have it. We give up too easily. When it comes to effort, well, effort's not necessary. Go back to the quote that I read about Mozart. Mozart said he works harder. He said to one of his friends, I work harder than anybody else. But the fixed mindset says it's only needed if you're not good enough. When the fixed mindset person gets feedback, they get defensive and they take it personally. And setbacks, setbacks are a great place to do our learning. I call it learning by burning, of course, but they blame others and they don't take responsibility and they get easily discouraged. So that's what a fixed mindset might look like. Contrast that then with the growth mindset. Next slide, Jen, please. And very different approach, right? The green is growing and the red is ripe and rotting. So with a growth mindset, skills are gained from hard work. And we have learned that in skill, right? We start out at a retreat in September, and by May, we've applied a lot of hard work, and change comes from that. It's just like exercise. So skills are gained from hard work and application with the understanding that we can always improve. None of us will probably be Mozart, but hey, if we can play more than chopsticks on the piano, that's a growthy thing. When it comes to challenge, it should be embraced. It's an opportunity to grow and to learn about ourselves. And it's always there, right? My friend Carrie Schwartz, who's on the call from Salmon, Idaho, and I had a great conversation the other day about the importance of staying on the edge of our comfort zone, because that's the learning zone. Effort is essential, and effort is a path to mastery. You continue to grow through effort. Feedback is very useful. Maybe it's got a little sting to it, but we always learn from it with the growth mindset, and it helps us identify areas to improve that maybe are in our blind spot. And setbacks are used as a sign to work harder next time. They're a motivation. So that's that's in one quick slide, the difference between these two. Again, my urging is for you, if you're inclined to do so, read that book, because it's a really, really good book.
I think one thing I would add to this is that I think where fixed mindset can get a little dangerous or is when your ego gets involved. And maybe you think, I've been doing this a long time. I'm pretty good at it. I'm one of the best at it, or whatever it happens to be. Or I feel like I should be the best at it or good at it. And then you start to kind of, that growth, I think that fixed mindset can start to creep in, where if somebody challenges how you do things, you might get a little defensive. If somebody shows up who is new on the game and they're better at it than you are, and you think, wait a minute, I should be better at it than you are. Those kinds of ego issues, I think, can get kind of tied up, and you find yourself perhaps in a fixed mindset sometimes. So just being aware of that when those feelings crop up, that I might be slipping into fixed mindset. How do I get myself back into growth mindset?
And one of the benefits, I think, of this program, New Eyes, New Prize. So if you can put your eyes on the difference between fixed and growth mindset, if you've never come across this material before, this is a new component of how you see the world. And the more we see, the more observation we can make about ourselves and about the world and how we fit and work in it, the better off we are. So this is hopefully one of those tips that'll help you. Next slide, please, Jenny. I look at people that I consider to be creative problem solvers, and in the growth mindset, two questions come to mind. They say, what if? What's the possibility here? What's possible? And yes, and, if you will. What if? And the next question is, push the button there, Jen. Next slide, please. Is ask the question, why not? And it's all about open-ended possibility. And sure, there's an F word in there, and we'll get to some F-bombs before we're done with this. We promised that in the flyer. But you know, the why not is oftentimes offset by the possibility, the prospect of failure. And failure is a great discourager if in our fixed mindset that affirms that we're not very good. And look, I am a champion at telling myself never good enough. I've done a lot of work to work past that, and my creativity and that aspect of my life has improved tremendously. And so I'm more inclined to ask this question. So the what if and why not questions are really, really good tools for moving forward and getting past the block that says, well, I might fail. So keep that in mind. Those are two tips that I have experienced personally in my life that have helped me a lot. This is a photograph I took in a place called Rosnes Meadow. Rosnes Meadow is outside of Devil's Lake State Park. It's the busiest state park in the state of Wisconsin. And I liked how that image turned out. And it was sort of an accident, but not really an accident, because I had done a lot of work to get to this place on this day when the light was right and the position was right and all the rest of it. I could not have predicted that this image would have turned out that way, but I had been to that spot many, many, many times and knew my camera, and I knew the light, and I knew where the sun was going to be, and all of those things were in place before I showed up at dawn on this morning. And this is the image that I was lucky enough to get. And that lucky bit draws me back to a quote by the father of the germ theory, French physician Louis Pasteur. And he says, in the fields of observation, and I believe creativity and art are about observation, chance favors the prepared mind. My friend, artist Carrie Schwartz on this call will say, you've got to do the work. You've got to learn the rules so you can break the rules. And so, you know, I knew the workings of my camera. I knew what was going to happen with the light. I knew all of these things. And so I was lucky enough to be able to snap this picture. And so to be creative, to snap the good picture, in fact, we're taking in information all the time and processing that and holding that for the time when it can all come together. And a more topical example that just makes my head spin around when you know the backstory of the Moderna vaccine for coronavirus that, you know, was put together in such a short time. Well, the work on the messenger RNA vaccines has been going on for 2 decades. Matter of fact, some of that preparatory work was done at the University of Wisconsin in Madison back in the 90s. So scientists have been looking at this mRNA business for a long time. And along comes this pandemic, and the question comes up, you know, the previous slide asked the question, what if? So there had been problems in years past with inflammatory reactions to mRNA, but researchers had done the work to get past that obstacle. And now the pandemic, you know, the crisis has created a situation for scientists to really exercise and flex their creativity to solve the problem. And this mRNA vaccine story from a science perspective is just fascinating. But it goes right back to that quote at the top of the slide. In the fields of observation, chance favors the prepared mind. This creation of this vaccine, the design of the vaccine took 2 days. That's it, 2 days. And to their credit, the Chinese gave the science world the genome, the map of how this coronavirus is put together. And the vaccine was designed in 2 days and has come to the market in a record time. It's a fascinating bit of creativity and problem solving. Next slide, Jen, please. So there was a time when I was taking a lot of photographs and spending a lot of time in the environment, just enjoying what's all around me, paying attention to all of these things. And I'm drawn back to this quote by Marcel Proust that says, the real voyage of discovery consists not in seeking new landscapes, but in having new eyes. New eyes, new prize. There I was sitting on the shore of Devil's Lake, the gem of Sauk County, the gem of southern Wisconsin, taking in the sunrise, waiting for the next moment, hoping for the next big thing. And yet nothing was happening to my liking as a photographer. And so I was disappointed that all I got was a good hike that day. And I looked at my feet. Next slide, Jen. And the real picture was right there looking back at me. New eyes, new prize. I almost missed him. This elegant, exquisite little amphibian. Look at that skin. Look at that coloration. Don't you wish you had suction cups on the ends of your fingers and great big eyes like that? Absolutely. And I almost missed him because I was waiting for the next big thing. So new eyes, new prize. Pay attention to everything that's around you and be able to combine elements and see elements in a new way for the new prize. And here we get to the F-bombs. Here's your opportunity, friends, to drop a few F-bombs in here. Is there an F in creativity? This is not some sort of a little, is there, you know, I mean, you look at that word creativity, and you say, well, there's no F in there, almost with that E, if you take off one of the legs of the E. But no, you know, I gazed out the window and I thought about this word creativity and what it means. And I came up with a slew of F words. How about you? How about tossing out a few F-bombs for creativity? What kinds of things, what kinds of thoughts, ideas support the creative endeavor?
Fun.
Thank you.
Failure.
Failure, there you go. Like it a lot.
In chat, I see focus.
Focus, that's
Focus, good. And
Fluctuation.
fluctuation. Whoa, nice work. Others?
We got fortitude.
Nice.
I'm gonna butcher this. Frivolity,
Whoa, nice.
freedom,
Mm.
flexibility.
Mm. Coming on strong, you guys. That's great.
Morgs, I said friction.
Friction. Of course you would, because there's always friction between you and I.
I don't
Form a
think it's
blister. You're the blister sister.
Futuristic. Futuristic.
Oh, nice. Great. Of course, all of these things support, you know, and really make up what creativity is. Next slide, Jen. I'll just show you the ones that I came up with, and for me, the landing point for the end of this talk about new eyes, new prize is really about freedom. You know, the freeing ourselves as much as we can from a fixed mindset, going into a growth mindset, getting out of our own way and saying, it's okay. It's okay. Framing the results in such a way to say, oh, I learned something from that. It wasn't what I expected. I'm lucky enough to, we do some work with a group of exceptional scientists on presentation skills every week in New Zealand. We do it by Zoom. And it's remarkable how sometimes in science, the results of an experiment turn your head and you go, where did that come from? But it's creativity, it's problem solving and framing that up, framing up the answer and understanding it. Ooh, that's exciting. Fun, of course, moving forward, flexibility, fabulous, fulfilling, thrilling, frustrating, of course, flow when you're right in the middle of it. Failure, there's an F-bomb that we're all scared of, but it's a great teaching tool. Foundation, just like I told you about the Moderna vaccine, we build creativity and problem solving based on others' work, and following others. You know, in terms of being creative, sometimes we have to copy others' work until, you know, you play the scales, you play the music on the notes until you can develop your own signature style. Fortitude, which means just hang on in there. Fortuitous, ooh, happy little accidents. Finding a way, finding a path through the briar patch. Fascination, fear-inducing. Yep, people pay money to jump off of bridges with a bungee cord attached to their ankles, and fear takes on a whole new dimension when you've paid $168 to do that. And Fairyland is, wow, it's a whole new world with new eyes and seeing a new prize. Thank you for your contributions there. Oh, dear me. This was another promise. I'm not sorry I made it, right? But you think about meatloaf, and in some ways, meatloaf is a staple comfort food, and it could be kind of boring. But I love the Food Lab. I love the website Serious Eats because they sort of take a scientific approach to cooking, and the narrative is always fantastic. And the narrative to accompany this picture in his 1958 classic, As Old as I Am. 365 ways to cook hamburger, along with hundreds of recipes for burgers, sauces, soups, meatballs, and casseroles. Doyne Nickerson offers no fewer than 70 recipes for meatloaf. 70, 7-0. A different loaf every night for over 2 months. Imagine that. And as he could tell you, though, the beauty of meatloaf lies in the almost infinite ways in which it can be customized. I will put in parens creativity. So long as your ratio of meat to binders is correct, the sky's the limit as to what you can do. I sometimes add chopped pickles or briny olives. Pine nuts or almonds also add texture and flavor. My mother, who I believed for a long time looked for ways to hide raisins where you'd least expect them, would probably enjoy some raisins in her meatloaf. I'm not one to judge. Point being, right? If we do the work and we've got the basics just right, the opportunity to improvise, to say, yes, and I will add saltine crackers to that mix. Yes, and I will add anchovies. Not in mine, thank you very much. Yes, and, the opportunities to improvise with something as basic as meatloaf, to me, is fundamental as an illustration of creativity. And creativity is available to all of us. If we allow ourselves the freedom to have new eyes, we will discover a new prize. Next slide, Jen, please. Over to you.
Thanks, Morgan. I love your meatloaf story. So I wanted to talk a little bit about how can we kind of boost our creativity? What can we do to bolster our creativity? So I asked my husband, I'm like, if you came to this creativity thing, what's the one thing you'd want to learn? And he said, well, I want to know how to be more creative. So I know a lot of folks on this call probably are already on the upper end spectrum of creativity, and other folks maybe are still trying to figure out how to tap into their creativity. So this might be more for the folks that are trying to tap into their creativity. But I have on the slide 2 different ways of thinking. There's divergent thinking on the left and convergent thinking on the right. And I think that our culture, our like get it done, get it done, get it done culture kind of forces us into that right side of this slide, the convergent thinking, where we are just assembling facts and making a decision. And it's pretty much as fast as you can go and just get to the answer and go. But I guess my thinking and my recommendation is how can you slow that down before you start getting to the answer? How can you get to the left side of the screen and think about using divergent thinking? So instead of trying to solve the problem, thinking of possibilities. I work with a lot of different nonprofit groups, and my experience has been that people really like to jump to solutions. And one of my roles as a facilitator is to back them up a little bit and say, let's not solve the problem right away. Let's think about what's possible, because many times the first idea is not the best idea. Sometimes it's the 8th idea that's the best idea. But we need to slow down long enough to give ourselves the opportunity to spend some time in that divergent thinking and coming up with possibilities, even though some of them might not be particularly great. And you might say, well, that's easier said than done, Jenny. if you're like me, divergent thinking is more maybe my default mode, but there are some tools, and I wanted to leave you guys today with a tool that I've discovered, and I thought we'll give it a try. So the tool is called Scamper, which I like the term already, Scamper. It's a mnemonic device, and it's designed to help you think differently about a project, an idea, a process, an event, whatever it is you're working on. It's basically a checklist of idea generating strategies. So some folks might use this when they get blocked or they're stuck. If you find yourself in a rut and you need to think outside the box and you just can't come up with anything else new, this might help you kind of chart a new path. So like I said, it's a mnemonic device, and it's about taking an existing, like I said, product, idea, whatever, and maybe it's substituting something. Maybe it's combining something. Maybe it's adapting it, modifying it, putting it to another use, eliminating something, or reversing the whole process. So I'll show you a quick video about it, but I just had to share because it was very fortuitous that today, my 11-year-old son is on virtual school today, so he's home with me. And today, out of the blue, he wanted to make his own lunch, which happened to be spaghetti tacos. So he was in the combining mode and using his creativity. So I thought, hey, I'm going to use that as an example today. And he's like, oh, that's great. He was very excited that he'd be part of the presentation. So I'm going to show just a quick video. Hopefully this will pop up. There it goes. Just 2 minutes on what this Scamper thing is. All right. So I would like for you to give it a try. And so what I'm going to ask you to do is to break into your same groups again that you've been in, and we're going to try this Scamper technique. So the idea is we're going to talk about a particular product in this case, and that is pizza. And I want you to try this checklist. So maybe think about S, which is substitute. And I'll put these, I'll share these in the chat for the group, but when you're in your small groups. But what could you substitute on your pizza? What could you combine pizza with to make something else? How could you reverse pizza? So it's just a technique to get you thinking differently about, like I said, in this case, a product, but it could be a process or an idea or anything else. To help you get outside of maybe your rut of how you envision this particular idea. Are there any questions about this before we go into small groups and try it out with the concept of pizza? Hearing none. I am going to put you in. So I wanted to ask you a little bit about how that went, trying this tool. How did it influence your brainstorming? Any impact? What'd you think?
I love these words. I thought they were great. They were terribly inspirational, and I can see applying them to daily life a lot, often.
Excellent.
Sarah.
Thanks, Sarah. So what can you give me an example from your brainstorm? How did it help?
Well, we were coming up with all kinds of things, not just modifying, how the pizza would serve as a food item and how you could make it into a sweet item, combine it with other menu food items. But, we were putting out ideas like making a hat with the crust and, mopping up spilled things and frisbees. And we were thinking out of the box.
Nice.
Excellent, excellent.
Nice
Well,
work.
that's one of the reasons we wanted to do this exercise is to give people a chance to just kind of let their ideas flow without any judgment and just have a little fun thinking, and it's okay if it gets a little silly. Other thoughts on how this particular technique or mnemonic device, how did it influence your brainstorming about the pizza?
I liked how my co-group person was focused on entrepreneurial views, because I really listened to the kinds of ideas he had that were very different from the trends that I was on.
Excellent, excellent. As part of this group, thanks Nancy, as part of this group, did you notice any yes and or yes but thinking as you were working on this?
Well, there were only two of us talking, and I'd be reluctant to evaluate on that level.
I appreciate that. I'm just wondering if even in your own self, as to the group here, did you feel yourself doing yes and, or did you feel a little yes but kind of sliding in?
I
I'm a
felt more
pretty-
yes and.
I'm sorry, what was that?
More yes.
More yes ands?
Nice.
What was the other comment?
Oh, I was just saying, I'd say, in general, the conversation was expansive, which I think goes with the yes and.
That's a good word. I like that one.
Any other thoughts about this tool? Do you think it would be applicable to other things that you're working on? I know that Sarah talked about that. Any other thoughts about how you might use this in a different way?
I was kind of inspired by some of the other ideas that came out from the other people in my group. And it kind of made me think that isn't creativity sometimes better in groups than sitting here at my desk trying to be creative on my own? It's good to talk to people. And that is something I do when I feel like I'm, feeling a little dead creatively. I will call other people. And whether they are kind of in the creative mindset or not, I, just get inspired by talking to other people. So
that's something, Morgan, I've done tons of reading on creativity, and that's one of the things they talked about is that you really need, it's really a collaborative experience. If you are just by yourself always thinking about creativity, you can do some of that, but it really kind of breaks you out of your mold when you start infusing other people's ideas.
And you think about that in the context of yes and or yes but, right? So you want to be around a bunch of yes and people that can add oxygen to the fire, and the embers, who knows where they end up. But yes and is oxygen and the collaboration, and you just don't know, right? We cross-pollinate with so many people, and they don't necessarily have to be within our field.
Well, I wanted to try this because I wanted to leave you with some kind of tangible tool that you might be able to use in your own life if you're brainstorming with a group or stuck in a particular spot to try to kind of expand your thinking. So I appreciate your willingness to try it on. I'm going to hand it over to Morgan to bring it home.
Okay, so I've got a great friend, and he happens to be on this call. He's a hero and a mentor and really a creative amplifier for me. And I pointed out Carrie Schwartz is from Salmon, Idaho. I spent a year in Salmon as a large animal veterinarian many years ago, and our friendship has carried forward for decades. right? And Carrie is a professional and elite saddle maker, right? All of this is done by hand and in his shop there in the mountains of Salmon, Idaho. And he's a co-founder of the Traditional Cowboy Arts Association, just an exquisite artisan. And I'll lean forward. You can take a breath in just a moment, but I have seen some of Carrie's work, some of his saddles at auction, at a very elite auction, go for a conservative sum of $40,000, right? So that's and perhaps those saddles will never ever see the back of a horse because they are a work of art. Anyway, the conversations that we have are just rich, and we always jump into the deep end of the pool. And the other day we were talking about creativity, and Carrie used the word headspace. And I think it is so important that if we're talking about the elusive creativity, and it's delicate, it's like a butterfly, the muse has to be there and it whispers, it doesn't shout at us, all of these things, do we put ourselves in an environment mentally, physically, that allows for creative thinking? You know, there's nothing easier in this world than working hard, right? It's a badge of honor to say I worked 70 hours this week. Well, great. But where's your head? If you want to talk about creativity, that sometimes doesn't fit into that picture. And so Carrie said to me the other day, I need headspace to do my best creative work. That's my paraphrase of this quote. And headspace means I've got to be able to put myself in a frame of mind that allows the creative process to happen. And a point that he made that I think is so apt, especially now with pandemic and politics and da-di-da-di-da, is that we all are suffering from some level of anxiety. A low grade, high grade anxiety is there tugging at us, and it's blocking us from being able to be free to do our best creative work. And my friend Carrie said, what I do is I shut the media off, right? I don't listen to the news. I won't let that encroach upon this important part of my work. You can't do the kind of work that I've shown you in those two pictures if you're distracted by negativity. I swoon over this work, and I appreciate it because when I was in 4-H as a youth, I took leathercraft, and my work never looked like that, I'll tell you what. It's just exquisite. But I think this is important for all of us, that we need to think about headspace when we're talking about creativity, whether we're sitting on a beach right now, Anna Maria Island, as Dr. Cheryl Geckerman is taking in this seminar, or whether we're just in a quiet space with nothing on and the screen's a long ways from us, just allowing ourselves not just the luxury, but the important space to think. Yeah, it's a luxury, but we deny ourselves. Okay, Jenny, I get the message. Next slide.
Sorry, I didn't mean to do that.
No, that's all right. That's fine. You're giving me the hurry up. Right. We'll talk about it. So because Sauk County Institute of Leadership is about leadership, we're talking about creativity, and a lot of you are taking this personally, as you should, right? First and foremost, we have to have the freedom to do creative work personally. But as leaders, how can we boost creativity at work? And that is to allow people to have the freedom to express their own ideas and to have the space to do creative thinking. We know that at least in the early stages of creativity, the intellectual challenge is more enticing and more fruitful for creativity than the carrot of a higher salary. So challenge for many in studies that have been done, challenge is a powerful incentive in the early stages of creativity, challenge and independence. Give them the resources to do the work, right? We have experience with a group in New Zealand on this call today. We have Dr. Christian Sauerman, who's part of that group at Ag Research in New Zealand. And I think Christian would agree that the team dynamics are vital to allowing creativity. And we've just done that in the breakout rooms. It's a yes and mentality, right? It's supporting each other, getting egos out of the way and providing a team environment that lets this thing go. And encouragement for all of us is like oxygen. It's like rocket fuel. As a guy who worked in pharmaceutical research and development for 10 years, I can tell you that the most powerful active ingredient in the world is attention and encouragement. And so to encourage people to say yes and rather than yes but is great from a leadership perspective to allow creativity to flourish. And if you're lucky enough to be in an organization whose culture supports creativity, fantastic. You know, if I was interviewing for a job today, I'd want to know if it's a yes but or a yes and culture. Next slide, Jen. Home stretch now, kids. And somehow we have to protect this creativity. It's very fragile in the early stages, right? And so this is a quadrant for a session that Jenny and I did on resilience with a different group last week. But I think it sure has merit here when we're talking about creativity and problem solving in the ever fragile early stages of all of that, you know, the fear of failure and all the rest of it. So we want to put people around us, upper left-hand quadrant, that support us, that keep us upright when we might be wobbly, when our ideas are so fragile. We want to put yes and people around us. We want to have people that show us the love that allow us to stay in a creative space as opposed to being shut down. Ask yourselves, what strategies do I have or would I like to have that keep me moving forward? And some of those strategies are the freedom to believe that you're worthy and your ideas are worthy, right? It's the growth mindset that says, I need to do the work. Failure is part of all of this. Think of all of the F words that we came up with that support creativity, that are part of creativity. Sagacity, the wisdom and insight. It may be a favorite quote. I've got one that popped into my head the other day that said, life either expands or contracts in proportion to one's courage. And that is from Anais Nin. So if you've got a favorite quote, if it's your faith, if it's a song, you know, a theme song, whatever it might be, do you have a lucky charm, be it spiritual or be it physical, that allow you to move forward? I know writers that have rituals that they do so that hopefully the muse lands on their shoulder for that day. Whatever that might be something that you want to explore. And solution-seeking behaviors that you showed, you know, whether you're in a rut or whether you're blocked, or what do you do when the idea doesn't come? For me, I go cycling. It's my cycle therapy. I throw my leg over the top bar of the bicycle and I'll go ride for a couple of hours and I come back and just like the magic answer, bingo. It's not the whole answer, but there will be a piece of the puzzle that shows up as a gift for the exertion and all of that oxygen. So whatever it might be, think about strategies for resilience to protect your creativity, because it is absolutely precious. Think of the supports you've got around you. Think of strategies, consider strategies, maybe even merits doing a little investigation. Look, we've done a lot of reading to put this thing together. And the bonus for us is that we get more smarter about these things by digging in and doing the research. The sagacity, the wisdom that you turn to, and solution-seeking behaviors when you might be stuck. Next slide, Jen. So this is my close, right? We're at the end of it today, and what fun it's been. And I love this quote by Szent-Györgyi. He was a Nobel Prize winning biochemist. And really it fits with what we're doing today when we talk about new eyes and new prize. And that is discovery discovery, consists in seeing what everybody else has seen and thinking what no one else has thought. Velcro starts from a cocklebur, right? It's you know, the Moderna vaccine, the mRNA vaccine. It is Post-it notes. There's a classic story about the development of Post-it notes. The story is summarized, of course, that it happened very quickly, but it happened to commercial success. It took 12 years to get there. But it's seeing what everybody else has seen and thinking what nobody else has thought. And look, it's our wish that you go forward now with these super tips, right? If you get one new idea from this seminar, we consider it to be a win, because, you know, free yourself up and think differently, new eyes and new prize. Jenny, Ellen, you want to add anything to that?
I'll just say thank you so much for joining us today. And you will get a little follow-up email from Ellen very shortly. It's got just a short little evaluation in it. Morgan and I would love to know what you thought of this program, how it could be improved, that sort of thing. Also, and I know there's a number of skill grads on today, so thank you so much for joining us. If you are interested and like talking about leadership, our application is available, and we would love to have you in the 2021 program.